Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this, we'll go with that. This is Miss Simpson, World History, Wise High School. Um, I'm just trying to give you a recap of what we studied and then segue into what we're going to study for the remainder of the school year. I know we've been through a lot. I hope everybody's doing okay. Um, if there are problems, please email me. You know, I respond, always respond. Um, if anybody has any issue with this video or being able to see it or whatever or anything, just let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and start. I wanted to just, like I said, kind of review where we've been to get to where we're going. Okay? Um, First thing that we looked at is we looked at uh, how the world was redefined. Uh, one of our defining questions: why are some aspects of world civilization, such as religion, social structure, and artistic achievement, so long lasting and influential? Some of the stuff we do is from ancient times. Our government, ancient times. We got a lot of it from the Greeks, we got it from the Romans. Um, our math system, things of that nature, surgery, things like that were being done in those times. Why are they long lasting? Because they made sense. Um, so let's keep going. Religions. We started off with religion because religion has been something that has affected our world. Um, there's an excellent documentary on Netflix right now. It's not a documentary. It's a mini series, and it's called Unorthodox, and it's about a young woman. It's a true story. It's based on a true story about a young woman who's trying to flee an Orthodox Jewish community in New York City. Um, you should watch it if you really want to see what that group of people, what they feel, what they're like, because it's made by people of that organization and of that culture. It's very well done. It's a little risque. It's a little grown up, but it's worth watching if your parents will let you watch it. Um, World religions: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism. These are the religions around the world. Millions and billions of people practice these religions. We just celebrated Easter in this country. Um, just keep in mind, America does not have a national religion, but we shut down for Easter, we shut down for Christmas. Just something to think about, okay? We studied the ancient empires. We kind of touched on those a little bit. I wanted to just kind of touch on that before we move forward. We studied the kingdoms of Africa. I wanted y'all to understand uh, the culture of Africa, that it wasn't just people throwing spears and all the stereotypes and playing with monkeys. No, they had whole civilizations. They had whole systems. They had education and university and all the things that they had that people really don't talk about for whatever reason. The trade routes, the search for spices. That's the reason why people have traveled all around the world looking for spices so they can spice up their food, also so they can preserve their food. There's a whole study of the history of salt and how important it was and how much of a commodity it was in these times when they didn't have refrigeration and ice and so forth. Okay? Unit 2, we talked about trade and travel. The question that we wanted to look at: how and why did trade and interaction lead to changes in political, economic, and social systems? I had you all do posters. I wanted y'all to look at different aspects of this in different parts of the world and to kind of study it, research it, and illustrate it, because you have to use some critical thinking to do that. So that's why I wanted you all to do that. Some stuff that we looked at. We looked at Atlantic exploration, all the different explorers that left Europe and came to the Americas. And we also looked at the misconceptions around them. Columbus was not a good guy. He was trash. He was a trash human. I mean, he was terrible. He killed people and put their heads on spikes. It's not a good look. It's not a good holiday, and it is what it is. The Protestant Reformation and the Renaissance, we looked at that. We looked at the arts and the architecture and the thought that came out of the time period, and the Titian, the chunky ladies, that was a sign of beauty as being thick, because If you were thick, that means you didn't work. All the people who worked, they were skinny and they were the peasant class. Um, you all did your research projects during this time. And I was really proud of you, and y'all did a good job. And I actually was educated by you this time, which I love because that means you all are really thinking and processing and presenting information. That's the best way to learn. So, kudos. The revolution and reactions. What social, political, and economic conditions led to the overthrow of established ideas on both sides of the Atlantic? This was where we had the Enlightenment period, where we talked about beginning of democracy. Democracy didn't begin in this time, it began in ancient Greece. But the idea of it spreading across Europe and all the monarchies breaking up and people starting to elect people instead of having this person just born into a position that they might not be qualified for. Especially since there was so much inbreeding. If you look at the history of monarchs across England and Europe, a lot of them were like related. Their tree didn't fork, your tree's supposed to fork. The French Revolution, we looked at King Louis and Marie Antoinette and the whole let them eat cake thing. And they were living in luxury with gold furniture and people were starving. It didn't even have bread. So this was a time period of upheaval in France and then also across Europe too. And it spread over to the Americas because then you had the United States formed in this time period. And they took ideas from what was happening during the Enlightenment period, and that's what formed a lot of our Constitution. You had Haiti at this time. You had Toussaint Louverture, who was like this amazing leader. A lot of people don't talk about still. They're making a movie about him. They've been making it for like a while. So we'll see what happens. But you all watched the documentary, and I was glad y'all watched that because it showed what happened there, and a lot of people don't really talk about that too much. The Latin American revolutions, you had a lot happen in South America that resulted from this time period. People saying, hey, this is what we want our government to be, and so on. Napoleon, also, huge. Little guy, having a Napoleon complex means you're a little guy who's arrogant, but he did a lot. I mean, some good, some not so good, but also historic in the end of the 18th, early 19th century. The last unit that we covered, nationalism, industrialism, and imperialism. This was the modernization of Europe and America and the Americas and all of the industrialization and things being mass produced and child labor and the 9-to-5 job forming, which in this time period was really more like 16-hour jobs. It wasn't 8 hours. And you had this modern thing happening that we still kind of do some of these things now as far as jobs and labor and things of that nature. We're looking at jobs now because of the coronavirus. We're looking at how things are being done because this is a time period where everybody kind of had to shut down, and we're now looking at what's going to happen from this point on. How are things going to change? For instance, how is education going to change? Are we going to have snow days anymore? I mean, if everyone can learn from home, we'll learn from home now. It's actually not a bad thing. It just means we'll just say, hey, if we know it's snowing, we're going to do something remote, and that way we don't have to make up days. So I think a lot of changes are going to happen even from what's happening right now once we get past this. Getting past it, that's a whole nother thing. But we're going to talk about that. So, the things we talked about, imperialism, the racism of it, the white man's burden. I had you all look at the Hottentot Venus, Sarah Bartman, and how she was paraded around Europe like a circus animal. The concept of having to save these savages, and then also the scramble for Africa. And people always say, well, how did they let them come in and take over? Very simple. They have machine guns. It's very easy to say I'm not going to do something until you see the guy next to you get his head blown off, or get 10 people next to you get shot up because of machine guns. So It's easy to say that until it happens. And that's what happened when this imperialistic period was happening. They were developing weapons and learning to kill people more efficiently. Some people think that's like a sign of civilization and a sign of strength. It depends on who you are. It's kind of barbaric too. Uh, Latin America in this time period, you had revolution, you had colonialism, you still had slavery. We're looking at the 1800s. Slavery was ending. Slavery didn't end across the world until the end of the 1800s. The United States ended 1865. I'm pretty sure it didn't really end in South America until the 1880s, 1890s. And then we also had slavery in Africa because you had King Leopold that I had you all read about, who was barbaric to the people in the Congo, cutting off children's arms, their feet, because their parents wouldn't work or to force them to work. A lot of things happened that we really don't talk about because King Leopold killed millions of people, and we don't compare him to people like Hitler and Stalin, but we kind of should because he killed millions of people in an effort to imperialize and add to the empire of his country. Um, the impact in India, there's still an impact there. India still has residual conflict in their country because of the British rule there. In Russia and the Ottoman Empire, we don't even talk about the Ottoman Empire anymore. There really isn't such a thing anymore. We just have Turkey, we've got Russia, whole other thing now. But during this time period, these were major empires. Okay, and this is in the 1800s, uh, 1800s, early 1900s, early 20th century. Okay. The last unit we're going to talk about how and why do nations go to war. We're going to look at World War One, World War Two, the 1920s, the Great Depression. We're going to look at this time period of upheaval and major wars, and how one led to the other. World War One was caused by all the imperialism from the 19th century, the 1800s. That was one of the reasons. Imperialism. The second reason, nationalism. The third reason, militarism. All those machine guns, all the weapons, all the buildup. And then the alliance system. People started to join alliances. By people, I mean the countries with other countries. If the country you were allied with fought, you had to fight too. That's how other countries got brought into the war. People that weren't even really thinking that they would be in a war were in a war because their allies were fighting. Kind of like, your best friend fights, you jump in. Kind of like that. So, and we're in our alliances now. We fight in some places because our allies fight. Now, currently, under our current president, I don't really know who our allies are anymore. I mean, technically I know who they are, but a lot of them have kind of said, I don't really know about the United States. So that's a whole nother thing, and we're going to see how things change if he's reelected or if Biden is elected instead. What's going to happen? What changes are going to be made? Are these countries that have kind of pushed us aside going to be cool with us again? And that's the kind of thing that the alliance system was based on during World War One. Okay, so we're caught up. We're going to look at these areas. This PowerPoint is in Google Classroom. You're going to watch a video. You're going to take notes. You're going to read an article about the coronavirus. And it's kind of related to the imperialistic period that we studied because I want you to read the article. It's absolutely, I want you to read it. And then you're going to write a summary and a quick reflection. And those will be your two assignments, the note taking and the summary. The notes you can take by hand as you watch a video that's going to be posted. And the article, you're going to complete the worksheet that's in Google Classroom for that. And you also will have a couple of questions about this quick mini lecture that I've just done for you. Okay? I will talk to you all soon. Thanks for watching, and don't razz me too hard. This is my first time. Okay, thanks. Bye.